However, they do end up encountering a dragon and fighting a dragon on the mountain, and I don't think that's a huge spoiler really, considering the cover of this book. Hello, I'm the Fantasy Bookworm, and this is today's book. It's called No Such Thing as Dragons by Philip Reeve. Now, first of all, a little bit about the author. Philip Reeve is a young adult and children's author from Brighton who's probably most well known for writing the Mortal Engines series, set in a distant post-apocalyptic steampunk future with moving cities. The first Mortal Engines book was made into a Universal Pictures movie in 2018. And incidentally, if you have seen that movie and you didn't think it was very good, the books are a lot better. I'm actually a huge fan of Philip Reeve, so it's surprising really that it took me as long as it did to get round to reading this book. No Such Thing as Dragons came out in 2009, and I only just got round to reading this about a couple of months ago at the time of recording this. It's a standalone middle-grade fantasy novel in a medieval setting which follows a character named Johann Brock who goes up a mountain together with his mute boy servant Ansel in order to slay a dragon. He's told the villagers that he's going to go up this mountain in order to hunt and slay a dragon, in order that he can claim the reward, but secretly Brock doesn't actually believe that dragons exist, hence the title of the book, No Such Thing as Dragons, which is repeated quite a few times. However, they do end up encountering a dragon and fighting a dragon on the mountain, and I don't think that's a huge spoiler really, considering the cover of the book, which I'll show you a close-up of on screen now. I think as a reader, I would be disappointed if a dragon didn't show up in the story at some point. That actually brings me to my main criticism of this book, which is that it is a bit predictable. I actually think that Philip Reeve is much better as an author when he's working on a large canvas. He's really good at world building and telling stories with many different characters that take place across multiple continents or indeed entire interplanetary systems in the case of his Railhead series. But with No Such Thing as Dragons, it's a relatively short book, and it's very much a story that focuses mostly on one location with a small cast of characters, and it just kind of hits all of the plot beats you would expect it to, and because of that, yeah, it's just a bit predictable. That isn't to say that the characters whom we do meet in the book aren't interesting. Ansel is the mute boy servant who, at the beginning of the novel, is essentially sold into slavery by his own father, and his character arc is all about finding his autonomy and quite literally finding his voice by the end of the book. It's quite similar in a way to Fever Crumb, Philip Reeve's protagonist from the Mortal Engines book, which came out in the same year, 2009, as No Such Thing as Dragons, which I find quite interesting. But to me, Brock is the most interesting character. He's introduced as a fraud and a swindler, and because of that, I kind of expected that on encountering a real dragon and discovering that dragons are in fact real, he would be revealed to be a coward, but in fact he actually turns out to have this misguided sense of heroism, and out of all the characters we meet, it's actually Brock who is the one who wants to go and hunt the dragon and slay the dragon and bring it back, so he can kind of prove his masculinity. The dragon, incidentally, is not sentient. It's portrayed more as just a large, fierce, predatory animal. Another strength of Philip Reeve that I think really does actually come across in this novel is his prose style. There's some passages he writes in there which are really quite beautiful, that do a very good job of conveying the sense of isolation, and that the mountain is a desolate and unforgiving place, and you feel that with or without the dragon, it's going to be a challenge just for the characters to survive. To give you an example of what I'm talking about, I'll read you out a short extract from the book, and just to give you some context, at this point Ansel and Brock are accompanied by a girl named Else, whom they have met on their way up the mountain. "Come on," shouted Brock's voice, bellowing down at him from the high above. "If the worm finds us on this cliff, it will have us like 3 eggs in a basket." Ansel looked up at Else through the slackening snow. She said nothing, but she made a quirking movement with those black brows of hers, and he knew that she agreed with Brock. He let her go ahead and climbed after her. She was slower than him, so sometimes his face was on a level with her feet and he could see the way her felt boots were starting to come apart, bearing her bloody, blistered heels. He knew she must be in pain, but she did not speak of it, and he thought that was brave of her. But Brock kept climbing, tireless. He could picture the dragon's lair somewhere above him, a cave in a crag, the rocks around it scattered with bones and droppings. Maybe there would be gold in there, like in the old tales. But it wasn't the thought of gold that pulled Brock up the mountain. It was the worm itself, and the chance it offered him of turning all his lies into one startling truth. Brock the Worm Killer, he thought. Johann von Brock, the Dragon Slayer. The wind howled and hooed, trying out unnerving dragon noises. It was cold enough to crack rocks, thought Else, struggling along behind the armoured man. Maybe the breath of dragons wasn't fire at all, but searing ice, and maybe this was how the dragon caught its prey, by luring men like Brock so high that they were too weary and weak to fight it when it found them. So to summarise, if you are looking for a book with lots of unexpected twists and turns in it, then I wouldn't necessarily recommend you read No Such Thing as Dragons. However, if you want something which has good atmosphere and suspense, then I would absolutely suggest that you check out this book. As I say, it's a middle grade fantasy book. There is violence and death in the story, however it never gets excessively gory, and there is a very subtly implied sex scene at one point, and I do mean very subtly implied. The way it's written is actually quite funny. It's more of just a little wink to adult readers. But yes, if you're looking for a spicy book about dragons, which I gather that sort of thing is quite popular these days, so I'm told, you won't find it in this book, unfortunately. But with all of that being said, I obviously read this book as an adult reader, and I very much enjoyed it, so I would recommend that you give it a go if you like dragons. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you again here on this channel soon.